Good morning. I'm Reverend Peter Faraday, UUCPA's sabbatical minister through the end of December. My pronouns are he, him, and no matter your gender identity, sexual orientation, ethnicity, family makeup, etc., you are very welcome at UUCPA, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. Whether in person or online, we're glad you're here this morning and on this beautiful autumn morning as we explore some spiritual wisdom from the great Sufi mystical poet Rumi. May you find nourishment and inspiration for your journey. We have a couple of pre-service announcements. First, this being a second Sunday, you're invited to stay after the service for our monthly second Sunday lunch, today of burritos and all the fixins. Thanks to kitchen coordinator Edie Keating and all the preparers for making this nourishing tradition possible yet again. Also, Also, please mark your calendars for a Campus Vision Town Hall next Sunday, October 15th. Shortly after the service, here in the main hall and on Zoom, architect Karen Payson will present the results of the schematic design phase of the project and take your questions. Childcare will be provided. You can find further info on uucpa.org as well as information on many other events and happenings. Finally today, as most of you know, COVID-19 masks are no longer required in services, but they're still strongly encouraged. Even if you choose not to mask for the whole service, since singing expels far more aerosols than speaking, perhaps at minimum you could consider donning a mask if you sing today's songs. We have masks available, so if you'd like one and didn't have one or didn't bring one, please raise a hand now and an usher will bring it to you. While that's happening, I'll say that if you're here in person and have questions about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, please stop by the welcome table out front with the blue tablecloth. And you can leave your contact information if you wish, and if you want to join the congregation, you can do so today. Now I invite you to center yourself in your chair. Become mindfully present in your body. Take a couple of deep, relaxing breaths. We gather, our different paths entwined, to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connection, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. And looking ahead to tomorrow's Indigenous Peoples Day, we especially honored the diverse history of this continent and all who contribute to our evolving communal life. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, we let ourselves arrive here fully in mind, body, and spirit. Then our service will begin with music from special guest musician Martin Manley.
Testing, testing. Good morning, everybody. My name is Beth Nord, for all of you who know me and those of you who don't know me. So to further begin our service, we acknowledge that we gather on unceded land of the Tamayan and Ramaytush people. We acknowledge these communities in the interest of truth and justice, awareness, and gratitude. In order to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism, we pledge to join the Tamayan and Ramaytushka people wherever they ask us for solidarity. We also take a pledge to take broader actions to repair the harm and to create the conditions that make collective liberation possible. Blessed be. Each Sunday, Unitarian Universalist congregations light a chalice, the symbol of our UU faith. Our accompanying words are adapted from reading number 434 in our Gray Singing the Living Tradition hymnal. Sacred Spirit of our radically interconnected existence and our deeply intertwined lives, help us to remember here our highest aspirations. May we know once again that we are not isolated human beings, but related in mystery and miracle to the universe, to the communion of all life, and to each other. In kindling our Unitarian Universalist chalice flame, we invoke and invite into this space the divine light of wisdom, the healing warmth of compassion, the sacred fire of justice, and dedicate ourselves anew to bringing our fullest gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. Blessed be, and amen.
With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition, living meaning not fixed, but ever evolving. Today's words by Rumi are adapted, or abridged rather, from his poem, Say Yes Quickly. It includes the word God, but you could do your own translation to the divine, or spirit of life, or sacred mystery, or the like. Forget your life. Say, God is great. Get up. You think you know what time it is. It's time to pray. You've carved so many little figurines, too many. Don't knock on any random door like a beggar. Reach your long hands out to another door, beyond where you go on the street where everyone says, "How are you?" But no one says, "How aren't you?" If you are here with us unfaithfully, you're causing terrible damage. If you've opened yourself and you're loving to God's love, you're helping people you don't know and have never seen. Is what I say true? Say yes, quickly. If you know, if you've known it from before the beginning of the universe. Beth Nord now shares a couple of thoughts on today's topic, followed by another version of Rumi, adapted version of a children's story attributed to him.
First of all, I'd like to invite all the children of all ages, young and old, to come up and enjoy this really attractive book. So while you're all coming, I'll just say that I don't know anything about Rumi. I don't know hardly anything about the Middle East, except maybe that Israel-Palestine conflict. But I'm in a French book club, and interestingly enough, the Middle East is closer to France than it is to the United States. So we've read several books by authors from the Middle East. And I'm anxious to hear Peter's talk this morning to learn a little bit more about Rumi and his thoughts. So first of all, let's see here. This is called Elephant in the Dark. So just notice that there's no the in front of everybody, and me included, is inclined to say the elephant in the dark. There are some languages that don't use those a, an, and the words. So this is probably a picture, supposedly, of Rumi, although he lived so long ago that there certainly were no photographs of him. So the elephant in the dark. Here comes the boat over the sea. See, it's impossible for me not to say the elephant in the dark. Merchant Ahmad had brought a mysterious creature all the way from India. There he is, putting him in the barn. Notice it's a stone barn. The news spread fast through the village. What could this huge beast be? Anybody want to guess? What do you think? What? You think it's an elephant? Well, the title does sort of give it away, doesn't it? No, I work a lot with 3-year-olds, and at this point they might say, a dinosaur, a tiger. The news spread fast through the village. What could this huge beast be? The villagers ran to the merchant's barn next to his house to see this strange creature, but the doors were locked, and the merchant, tired from his journey, was sound asleep. He stuck his head out of the window and shouted, "It's too dark in the barn to see anything. Go home and let me sleep." But no one went home. Instead, they decided to see the beast for themselves. See, this guy is being pushed through the window. The first villager snuck into the dark barn. He tripped on a bucket of water and fell on the animal's long, slithery nose. This startled the villager and set him running. Outside, he gathered himself, puffed his chest, and said, "The creature is like a snake." There he is. There's the snake. Next, a short man entered and reached very slowly into the dark. He wrapped his arms around one of the animal's legs and then rushed out to report, "People, the creature is not like a snake at all. Oh no, it is round and tall like a tree trunk." A third villager climbed inside the dark barn. The beast swept its huge ear against her face, and the woman ran out. "The creature is neither like a snake nor a tree trunk," she panted. "It's like a fan, a huge floppy fan." The 3 villagers argued excitedly. Others scratched their heads and disagreed. Each offered such different views. The fight escalated. You all know what that means. Got worse, right? And the remaining villagers stole into the dark barn to find out the truth for themselves. "It's like a leathery jug of water. It's skinny and hairy like a paintbrush." Here's the jug, here's the paintbrush. "It's definitely like a plow." Can you see what he's feeling there? "It sounds like a horn." All day long they called each other names and fought to prove each other wrong. And into the night no one listened, but everyone shouted and shoved. Seems like a pretty silly thing to have a big argument about, isn't it? When the sun finally rose the next morning, Merchant Ahmed led the beautiful, gentle creature to the river. But everyone was still too busy fighting to notice the large gray elephant. And no one noticed that they each knew only a small piece of the truth. He looks pretty happy, doesn't he? Now, if you go to YouTube on the internet, you're going to find so many little films of elephants playing in the water, their parents taking care of them. I've gotten quite entranced by elephants. They're apparently very intelligent creatures. So most weeks, our younger folks would now leave for religious education classes. However, on occasion, those don't happen. And this is one of those weeks when everyone gets to stay in service. So I invite you all to return to your seats, and everyone can rise in body or in spirit to sing number 188 in your gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, the lyrics of which are adapted from Rumi. And Bruce Olson, our music director, will lead us in singing it as a round. And I think I'll pick this up.
So because this one is known to us pretty well, I think we'll sing through it all together once, and then we'll just divide into 4 equal parts. So you've got, each part will have a choir member assigned to you. This was a suggestion by Beth, who said sometimes it's hard to maintain your own part when you hear other people singing around you, so it would be helpful to have a person, like a section leader. So we've assigned a choir member to each section. So we'll divide down the aisle and about halfway back. So we'll have section, 1, 2, and then in the back, 3 and 4. And we'll sing through it 4 times so that everyone has a chance to make it through all the way once. Okay, so with Veronica's help, we'll sing through it together. Yes, we'll sing through it all together once. And then when we are done with that first time, section 1 will start. And then when you see the number 2, section 2 will start. And then 3 and 4.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, choir members, for leading your sections. Sounded great. We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives, which we wish as community to share. If you're online and have a joy or a sorrow you'd like to have shared this morning, you may post them in the chat box provided by Zoom. If you're in person, the cards are up here in this basket, and you can always come up just before the service, or you can write one at home and bring it in. But either way, write it and place it in the basket as instructed on the top of your order of service, and we will share those as you care to. We're going to sing again, and we're going to sing in the round again, and Bruce will explain that. It's number 1003 in your teal hymnal. Where do we come from? The lyrics will also be projected on screen, and that's often easier, especially if you're singing around. So.
Well, luckily this will be easy because this round is also in 4 parts, so we'll just have the same 4 sections. But this one may not be quite as familiar to all of us, so let's learn it line by line. And you see that the starting place for each new portion of the round is the beginning of the next line. And we will do the repeat, so every line repeats 1 time, okay? So the first line sounds like this. Ready? And choir, you can help me with this. Ready? And. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? So sing that with us. Where do we come from? Where are we going? The second line sounds like this. Where do sounds like this. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. And finally, the last line sounds like this. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Okay, so now we'll start with the round. We'll start again with section 1 and then when they've done the repeat of that line, the second section will start in the beginning, and when they're done repeating the first line, section 3, and so forth. Twice all the way through.
Please be seated. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. That particular song contains a lot of questions, doesn't it? And Rumi has some answers, or some thoughts on it anyway. Jalal al-Din Rumi is one of history's most revered and influential mystical poets. And as we're focusing on his work all morning, a little background, although I will just scratch the surface. Rumi was born on September 30th, 1207, in what is now Afghanistan, and spent most of his life in Turkey. He's commonly referred to as a Sufi. Definitions of Sufism vary, but it's generally understood to be the inner psycho-spiritual or mystical avenue of Islam, with a central aim of forming a direct and transformative experience and or knowledge of the divine. Rumi came from the Persian educated classes and until age 37 seems to have been a highly respected conventional teacher and scholar like his father. Then he met a roving dervish, in basic terms an Islamic monk called Shams of Tabriz, Shams, S-H-A-M-S, of Tabriz, who evidently was so full of some spiritual presence that it caused Rumi to write, "What I had thought of before as God, I met today in a person." For the next 30 years, until his death in 1273, Rumi's gift to the world was to capture his dizzying awareness of his own divine connection as best he could through poetry. And nearly 800 years later, his verses are still, in the words of translators John Moyne and Coleman Barks, quote, "a cause of its incandescence in others." A quick word about translations. I don't know the precise source of some of the shorter lines I'll share during today's sermon, but the major pieces mostly come from Moyne and Barks' book of Rumi's quatrains and odes called Open Secret. The subtitle is Versions of Rumi, so they're not literal translations, but they do stay faithful to Rumi's tone and poetic images. This next poem, as our reading, however, comes from The Essential Rumi, translated by Coleman Barks. I cut two lines that refer to a story from the Christian Bible, but I would have needed to explain that, and it's not vital. Like our chalice lighting piece, it includes the word God, but again, you could substitute the divine, the spirit of life, sacred mystery, and or your own soul. Here is Rumi's Tending Two Shops. Don't run around this world looking for a hole to hide in. There are wild beasts in every cave. Even if you live with mice, the cat's claws will find you. The only real rest comes when you're alone with God. Live in the nowhere that you came from, even though you have an address here. That's why you see things in two ways. Sometimes you look at a person and see a cynical snake. Someone else sees a joyful lover, and you're both right. Everyone is half and half, like the black and white ox. You have eyes that see from nowhere, and eyes that judge distances, how high and how low. You own two shops, and you run back and forth. Try to close the one that's a fearful trap, always getting smaller. Checkmate this way, checkmate that. Keep the shop open, where you're not selling fish hooks anymore. You are the free swimming fish.
In spite of the stars we bear,
Our reading of Rumi's poem, Tending Two Shops, contains this line: live in the nowhere that you came from, even though you have an address here. To me, it's pretty clear he's suggesting what mystics and sages of every age and place have always recognized, that human beings live in two worlds at once, or at least have the potential to. The everyday world of secular reality and the spiritual world of a transcendent or sacred reality. And in their introduction to the book I mentioned earlier, Open Secret, translator collaborators John Moyne and Coleman Barks say that Rumi's odes and quatrains found there are, quote, the personal human records of a man being given a sharp, clear consciousness of the divine and enduring it. Now, we might think that the notion of needing to endure this is odd. Wouldn't any sincere spiritual seeker desire to be gifted with a sharp, clear consciousness of the divine? Sure, to a point, but folks who've experienced some of this report that it's like a huge electrical line and too much voltage can zap you. And in a different poem, Rumi tells us there's another kind of endurance needed: the patience and fortitude to somehow integrate that hugely expanded spiritual consciousness into the daily round of the material world. That is, to try to figure out how to live decently at this address when you've directly experienced the nowhere that you came from. And also, how to be when you don't feel so plugged in. In that poem, he refers to this sacred nowhere as some other tavern, and likens his lack of clarity about how to live here until he returns there to being a befuddled drunkard. So, echoing the same questions we sang earlier in Where Do We Come From, here is Who Says Words with My Mouth? All day I think about it, then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that, and I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off, but who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with my eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. When I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. Notice, though Rumi grumbles a bit, I didn't come here of my own accord and I can't leave that way, mostly he gets very quiet. And though it's a tale for another day, there's a parallel in a story from the Hebrew Bible when a man named Job has been cursing God for all his worldly troubles. But when God finally speaks to him, Job quickly clamps his hand over his mouth. And in my view, it's because both men are utterly humbled by the magnitude of the divine reality they're experiencing and fall silent in the face of it. Rumi expresses this in another piece and proposes that this reality transcends even our notions of good and evil. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Apparently, in that place, the fullness and unity of the world is complete. But of course, we know that despite this, most of us spend the bulk of our lives tending our material shops at this earthly address, where there are still fields, but also copious cow pies that we can't always sidestep. And despite Rumi's own frustration over his lack of clarity, as I just shared, what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. He also has the conviction that my soul is from elsewhere. I'm sure of that. And in another writing, he offers some counsel on how to begin integrating our soul and our regular lives. There is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. This is reminiscent of the still small voice phrase you may have heard, that inner soul whisper, a sacred intuition or awareness or prodding that, if listened to closely, might guide our next step toward our greater spiritual unfolding. I'll add that sometimes that voice can come from outside in the form of what the great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung called synchronicity. We might hear or witness something at a particularly vital moment, or find that events in our lives seem to be lining up in remarkable ways. And if we're doing that soul-level listening, we may get a very clear sense that it's not merely coincidental, but that, hey, our soul, our spirit self, the divine, might be trying to get our attention. There is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. And Rumi has further advice about walking the soul's path in this world. Here's an abridged excerpt from his piece entitled, The Question. God's presence is there in front of me, a fire on the left, a lovely stream on the right. One group walks toward the fire, into the fire, another toward the sweet flowing water. No one knows which is blessed and which not. Whoever walks into the fire suddenly appears in the stream. A head goes under on the water's surface, that head pokes out of the fire. Most people guard against going into the fire, and so end up in it. Those who love the water of pleasure and make it their devotion are cheated with this reversal. The trickery goes further. The voice of the fire tells the truth, saying, I am not fire, I am fountainhead. Come into me and don't mind the sparks. To these eyes you have now, what looks like water burns. What looks like fire is a great relief to be inside. What? What? Actually, it's pretty clear, though not necessarily on first listen. What Rumi is saying is, watch out. Spiritual irony can be a hard teacher. Most people guard against going into the fire and so end up in it. Ouch. And when he refers to these eyes you have now, he's talking about our inner eyes that have awakened. So when we've gained enough spiritual insight and understanding, we see that if we wade into what looks like soothing water to try to avoid our pain or cool our inner conflicts or evade our soul's highest calling by dousing our creative fire and settling for mere pleasure seeking, we end up being burned by the flames of spiritual and emotional emptiness, of alienation from our deep self and thus inevitably from others, fires of guilt and remorse of cheating ourselves and the world out of the music our soul came here to sing. And these same awakened eyes come to the profound paradoxical realization that if we instead heed the call of the voice in the fire that tells the truth, saying, I am not fire, I am fountainhead. If we allow the necessary discomfort of honoring our creative soul sparks and devote ourselves to bringing forth what we can from them, we will know that what looks like fire is a great relief to be inside. This isn't to suggest it's always easy to trust our soul fire and where it might lead us and what it might demand of us. Yet to borrow the title of a pop song by James Blunt, bravely developing a bonfire heart is both life-giving, healing, and necessary, especially at this historical moment. Some of you know your soul's most bountiful path or paths, but if that's not yet clear, or if you just need a boost, Rumi offers abundant one-line encouragements. A secret freedom opens through a crevice you can barely see. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. As you start to walk out on the way appears. On that way, we'll likely make some mistakes and probably learn some uncomfortable things about ourselves. Yet even here, Rumi cheers us on. If you are irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? And our opening song, based on a Rumi poem, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, omits the line that acknowledges the times we do head for the familiar waters of temporal comfort instead of striding into the soul fire that brings true relief. And then it tells us what to do. Even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times, come, yet again, come. Because whatever your gifts may be at your given stage of life, this hurting world needs you to persevere in giving them to the best of your ability. Even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times, come, yet again, come. Lastly, a final Rumi poem speaks beautifully about the spiritual wakefulness we've been exploring. Like his earlier metaphor of two shops, it underscores the importance of connecting to both worlds that we humans inhabit, the mundane and the sacred. And like all the sage advice he's already offered, I heartily suggest we heed this too. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. In the spirit of all that is sacred and with gratitude to one of the great awakeners, blessed be, and amen. As a part of the Free Church tradition, this Unitarian Universalist congregation accepts no money from any governmental body nor from any ecclesiastical authority, in order that we may remain free to govern ourselves. In addition to their annual pledges, each week our members and friends may choose to give an additional contribution as a public witness that we are and shall remain a free faith. You can use cash or check or the QR code to text info in the order of service. Please give generously. Thank you. We are grateful for the gifts offered today and for all the gifts and blessings in our lives. If you are visiting with us today, that's a gift in itself. We extend an especially warm welcome to you, and I'd be honored to meet you and say hello when we finish, if you'd like to do that, because you are our special guest. Now please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing number 326 in our gray hymnal, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. The words are also on screen. Please be seated. For our chalice extinguishing words, let's recall how earlier Rumi used the image of being drunk to describe how humans can so often be dazed and confused about how to best live in this earthly shop. Yet here again, he suggests a way out of that dark and confused prison for drunks. Discover your soul's shining radiance and fall up toward the divine. Here is the new rule. It's the old rule that drunks have to argue and get into fights. The lover is just as bad. He falls into a hole. But down in that hole, he finds something shining, worth more than any amount of money or power. Last night, the moon came dropping its clothes in the street. I took it as a sign to start singing, falling up into the bowl of sky. The bowl breaks. Everywhere is falling everywhere. Nothing else to do. Here's the new rule. Break the wine glass and fall toward the glass blower's breath. Blessed be. Thank you. Whether online or here in the main hall, please stay after the benediction for conversation. We all begin with greeting time, a chance to speak to someone you haven't met before or haven't seen in a while. Now, if you're online, please unmute yourself, turn on your video, and touch hands virtually like this. If you're in the main hall or on the patio, reach out to hold hands if you and the person next to you are comfortable with that, or to show that you are connected in spirit, cross your hands over your heart while we say our benediction together. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Rejoice in beauty. Speak love in word and deed. Honor all beings. Blessed be.